The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, you'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
The North Kesteven series is sponsored by Gainsborough Cycles 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop located at 20 Ropery Road, Gainsborough, or online at gainsboroughcycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gainsborough Cycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. Welcome back to North Kesteven, everybody. I've got a heck of a village for you today. This one is so big, I've split it into two separate walks. It's not just a big village here in North Kesteven, this is the biggest village in Lincolnshire. Its name is Ruskington. Ruskington, Rushy Farm. Today on TVI we come to a huge village, one that I know a lot of you out there have been waiting for me to cover. This one's so big it could theoretically be deemed a small town. This is Ruskington, located on the B1188. Here's an indication of its sheer size. It has 2,200 dwellings, and from east to west it measures approximately 1 mile. The population is also well over 5,000. Forget everything you know about North Kesteven, this isn't your typical village by any stretch of the imagination. The centre of the village is defined by not just one but two high streets, separated by the course of a small stream known as the Beck, which drains into the River Slee at Haverholme. The centre has several shops, pubs and facilities, and Ruskington is large enough to sustain 3 schools, 4 churches, a garden centre and a railway station. The largest employer here, much like neighbouring Alnwick, is a food factory. Located on the Sleaford Road, it's known to some as Pilgrim's Pride and to others as Tulip. That's on the route, so we'll check it out. It's a pork and chicken products factory, which originally produced primarily sausages and pork pies. Several notable people have lived here, including at least 3 politicians. Namely, these are George Davy Kelly, Sir Robert Pattinson, and Samuel Pattinson. In addition, Mormon pioneer William Maroney Gibson, bridge and lighthouse engineer Joseph Tomlinson, and wartime fighter pilot John Gillespie McGee Jr. were all familiar with Ruskington. So sit back and enjoy this wander around Ruskington, and by the end, you'll all be familiar with the place too. Okay, so given the size of the village we're about to take on, I thought it was prudent to split today's walk into 2 parts. I was staying in Ruskington during this run, so this first section will tackle the western areas, close to the property in which I was to spend the night. That means our first landmarks are a long way from the village centre, but even in these quieter suburban style streets, there are things of interest. Let's get started with the local surgery. This medical centre can be found on Brookside Close. Healthcare is something Ruskington does quite well. As well as this centre, the village possesses a dental surgery on High Street North and an opticians on High Street South. Brookside Close also has a veterinary surgery, and as if that's not enough, there's a second one of those also on High Street North. Brookside Close isn't the only street in Ruskington to take its name from the main watercourse that flows through the village. A lot of these western housing estates make reference to brooks or becks. They, for example, include such titles as Brook Way, Beck Close, West Beck and Hollowbrook Close. The stream in question splits Ruskington into 2 pieces, flowing from west to east, eventually draining into the River Slee at Haverholme. We can't see it in this estate because we're currently to the south of it. It runs around the edge of this lot before making its way through the Horseshoe Hollow Nature Reserve. Ruskington is considered to be one of the biggest villages in Lincolnshire. Some say it's even the biggest. As such, there are residences at almost every turn. It just kept growing over time. It's ideally placed for people who work in Sleaford, being literally just to the north of the town. Lincoln is easily reached too from here, so we shouldn't be surprised at all these houses. So as I'm sure you've gathered already, there's not a great deal in this sort of western section of Ruskington, but to be honest, this is quite a pleasant walk. The early evening sunshine is definitely not as strong as it was earlier in the day, and I'm not sweating my absolute nuts off at the moment, which is unusual. So let's continue. It's still more housing for a way. We're going to take a right turn in a moment up there and see what's down that street. The housing theme continues for a short way now as we hit another vastly residential area to the south of Westcliff Road. I'm going to use this to fill in some history as we walk. Ruskington's first mention in any kind of historical record came in the Domesday Book, where it appears as Rishintone and Reshintone. That literally means town or settlement where rushes grow, from the Old English word ricin. It's not inconceivable to imagine the rushes would have been in the beck. As a settlement, it's likely Ruskington has been here since Roman times. On aerial photographs, the line of a former Roman road, which ran parallel to the modern Lincoln Road, can be traced. Ruskington gained the right to hold a market on Saturdays via a charter granted to William Bardolph the Younger by Henry III on the 14th of April 1265. The same charter also granted the right to hold fairs and festivals. 2 years later, another market day was granted, again by Henry III, this time to be held on Fridays at the manor. There's plenty more history and facts as we walk around, but we're about to come to Ruskington Green, one of the several open spaces in the village. This is one of the smaller spaces the village has. Later we'll be seeing some extensive playing fields at Parkfield Road. Regardless, Ruskington Green helps to break up the monotony of the housing. In addition to this, there are 4 other spaces in Ruskington. 3 of them are children's play areas at Hillside, Elm Tree Road and Beck Close. The 4th is Horseshoe Hollow. There's no ball games on Ruskington Green. There's a little sign that says it's prohibited by order of the council. And if you do play a ball game on here and it goes over this fence, you ain't getting it back, because that sign there says balls will not be returned. Lincoln Road is the B1188, the main road through Ruskington to Sleaford, which from here bends eastwards and then southwards at a roundabout near the library. Travelling into Sleaford using this road is easy. From here you can pick up several buses. Alternatively, you can use the railway. The station is located on the other side of the village centre. After a walk up St Clement's Road, we're now on Manor Street. The building in front of us here is Ruskington Scout Hut. The local scout group was formed in 1946 and their meetings are held here in this rather modest brick building. During school term time, the Beavers meet here every Tuesday night, the Cubs every Wednesday night and the Scouts every Thursday night. Well, I don't know about you, but in an early evening, I always think villages look a little bit different and they feel and sound a bit different too, don't they? Because there's a bit less traffic around, less people around. It's just a nice ambience, especially when it's nice like this. And when it's nice, weather-wise, it's good to have a little look around a nature reserve. And Ruskington has one of those. This is Horseshoe Hollow. Now we're in Horseshoe Hollow. This is a nature reserve which for a few years now has provided the residents of Ruskington with a place they can all enjoy. It's a natural landscape with flora, fauna and wildlife representative of the locality and Lincolnshire in general. It's a very valuable asset. It also has another purpose which is arguably more important. Horseshoe Hollow is a water meadow and in the winter it helps to protect Ruskington from flooding. By allowing this to flood, it diverts water away from elsewhere in the village, therefore reducing the flood risk. Horseshoe Hollow also plays its part, along with the beck that runs right through the middle of it, in aiding Ruskington's cause when it enters local best kept village competitions. The development of Horseshoe Hollow has also slowed the growth of the village somewhat. That's because a local nature reserve is a legal definition and a status that's recognised nationally. This area provides the village with a modicum of protection from development for several years to come. North of the reserve is Horseshoe Close, and at the end of that we have the allotments. You know by now, I can't pass up the chance to film these for the fans. You know who you are. Okay, almost back to base camp for the night. I'm staying in an Airbnb. Now, this Airbnb is on Brook Way, and if you stay in it yourself, beware of the ducks, because, as you can see, there's a ducks crossing just here. And right on cue, the family of ducks came waddling past. Okay, it's now the next morning and I've come from the west of Ruskington over to the east. We're on something called Ruskington Fen, which is effectively just a massive, great big swathe of farmland. However, within this farmland, there's this building right here. That is a Wesleyan Reformed Chapel. Let's go again. Day 2 began in Ruskington Fen, probably not the first place you'd expect there to be a Wesleyan Reformed Chapel. This is first shown on the 1905 Ordnance Survey map. The building is still shown on modern maps, labelled Ruskington Fen Wesleyan Reformed Chapel. It was probably built in 1859. It's a small, simple gabled building entirely rendered and pebble dashed. There's a modern lean-to brick extension attached behind. Let's drive now back into Ruskington via the Fen Road. That means driving along the parish boundary with Alnwick, just north of the former RFC landing ground. That'll take us to the eastern reaches of the village and Hillside Park, another of the playground areas available to the children of Ruskington. This park can be found again in a massive residential property. My first job on foot, therefore, was to make my way south towards the railway station. In doing so, I figured this time I'd talk about some of the people who once lived here, and a couple of them share the same surname, Pattinson. At least 3 politicians have called Ruskington home in their time. They are George Davy Kelly, Sir Robert Pattinson, and Samuel Pattinson. Kelly was a Labour MP from 1906 to 1910, and oddly, his constituency wasn't anywhere local. He was the representative for Manchester South West. He was, however, born here in 1848. After becoming apprenticed to the lithographic printing trade in York, he worked as a printer in London, Birmingham, Leeds and Bradford before moving to Manchester. There, he became General Secretary of the Amalgamated Society of Lithographic Printers, formed in 1880. Samuel Pattinson was also born in Ruskington. He was a Liberal MP, holding the Horncastle seat between 1922 and 1924. His father ran the building company Pattinson and Son, alongside serving as chairman of the former Ruskington Urban District Council. Samuel Pattinson would later become a director of the company, as well as the director of Bainbridges Limited in Lincoln, run by his wife's father. It's his brother, Sir Robert Pattinson, that was arguably the more notable sibling. Again, he was a Liberal MP, this time for Grantham, between 1922 and 1923. In 1900, he became chairman of Ruskington Urban District Council, and 4 years later joined Kesteven County Council, eventually becoming an alderman. He would serve as the council's chairman for 20 years between 1934 and his death in 1954. That's why in North Hykeham there's a school named after him, the Sir Robert Pattinson Academy. He also had railway links too, joining as he did his family's railway contracting firm after finishing school. There, he was quickly appointed to senior positions. It was he who oversaw the project to widen the Great Northern Railway between Finsbury Park and King's Cross in London. Speaking of railways, we're now close to Ruskington Station. Okay, we've made it to the railway station, which you can just about see behind me there. There's 2 platforms, one for Sleaford, the other one for Lincoln. Now, I'm not going to go down onto the platforms here, and the reason for that is because there's no way for me to cross the lines down there. I have to use the bridge, which is currently behind the camera. And actually, that's a decent vantage point to have a look at this thing. Ruskington Railway Station opened in 1882 as part of the Great Northern and Great Eastern Joint Railway between Sleaford and Lincoln Central. It closed in 1961 along with vast swathes of wayside stations across the country. However, the demand for trains here was to become too great to ignore. As such, it was reopened in 1975, and ever since, this has been one of the busiest village stations in Lincolnshire. On weekdays and Saturdays, the station is generally served by an hourly service northbound to Lincoln and southbound to Peterborough via Sleaford. 5 trains a day extend beyond Lincoln to Doncaster. The station is also served by a single daily service to and from Newark Northgate. Okay, now we're on Station Road and we're heading for a school next. Ruskington has 2 primaries and a secondary, although the latter doesn't really belong to the village. We'll explain more about that in a bit, but let's get the first of the primaries out of the way as we make our way to Chestnut Street. Education has always been paramount in the village ever since 1824, when Ruskington's first school was opened. In 1868, the first of 2 school boards was established, and it would build a national school. Located on the High Street, it was designed to hold 120 children. Education in the village has come a long way since then. With Ruskington's ever-increasing size, more school places in the village were required, and that meant bigger, more spacious schools were built. One such building came along in 1880. It was an infant school designed to hold 140 children. It would move to a brand new premises on Chestnut Street in 1960. It worked alongside the National School until 1978, when the latter was replaced by a new school, again here on Chestnut Street. The National School is now the Winchelsea Centre. Having 2 schools on the same street was a bit daft. As such, it didn't take long for them to amalgamate in the 1980s. They would form Chestnut Street C of E Primary School. These days, the school is known as Chestnut Street C of E Primary Academy, after its conversion to academy status in 2012. At its last Ofsted inspection in 2013, it had 293 pupils and was judged to be a good school. Ruskington's got a lot of schools, that is not the last building we will be seeing on this walk. It's also got a lot of churches and chapels, and there we have the first of them on this route. That is a Zion Chapel. Nonconformism was pretty strong in Ruskington. The first Wesleyan Methodist chapel in the village was built in 1833. That was replaced by a new chapel on Chapel Street in 1849, which was rebuilt in the 1950s. That's for later. This one, though, is also Wesleyan. Known as the Zion Chapel, originally this came along in 1833, a date confirmed by an ashlar tablet above its door. At one time, this chapel had trouble accommodating all of its worshippers. I mean, it's not hard to understand why, because it is quite small. For much of its history, this church had a full-time minister who had oversight of the fellowship. A plaque commemorating the Reverend J.H. Oliver is mounted at the front of the church today. After being renamed the Ruskington Free Church in 1998, it remains true to its evangelical traditions and also remains in fellowship with the Wesleyan Reform Union. Now we're coming onto the High Street, which is split into two sections. These are called High Street North and High Street South. Splitting one from the other is the Beck. On High Street South, one of the first things you'll encounter is the Ruskington Youth Centre. This was one of those old schools we've just been talking about. Now, don't believe what the Lincolnshire Heritage Explorer website tells you. This was the infant school erected in 1880 and not the 1868 National School. Now a community building primarily for the young people of Ruskington, it's available for hire by the day, evening or weekend. It's a nice little spot, this bench which crosses the Beck here. It's a bridge and a bench all in one go, isn't it? Now this we'll see later as well, because this stretch of the High Street North, you can see here, that's going to be our end point. There's a pub over there called the Red Lion. That's the penultimate thing to see on this route. We're going this way though, following High Street South and the course of the Beck, and we're heading towards Jubilee Street. Ruskington boasts a variety of shops and amenities. The vast majority of its commercial activity takes place at the western end of the High Street. Businesses here include a Co-op supermarket, fish and chip shops, hairdressing salons, bakers, butchers, and 3 public houses. It all means the residents here have literally everything they need right on their doorstep. It almost makes you wonder, does anyone really need to go into Sleaford? There are way too many to talk about or even list them all, so here's a little selection of the things you might find if you're ever wandering around the place. There are two narrow thoroughfares that link the High Street to Station Road. Here's the first one, Jubilee Street. Now along here, there's just the one thing that caught my attention, these lovely buildings on the right hand side. Officially addressed as number 6 and 8 Jubilee Street, these are known as Total Cottages, and they hold the key to the name of the road. Built in 1887, they were erected after a bequest left for charitable purposes in Rowston and Ruskington, part of which was to care for 3 poor women in the parish almshouses. The cottages were built to commemorate Queen Victoria's Jubilee, a fact that's backed up by an inscription on them which reads, Total Houses, Victoria Jubilee. Okay, so running parallel to Jubilee Street, you have Silver Street, and we're about to go up that road, but not before we've spoken about one specific building on this road first, and that is this. We're about to head up Silver Street, but before we do, we have to mention this building opposite the end of the road. Now, as we already know, the Pattinsons were a pretty important family around here, and their company rapidly became a major force in house building, stonework and masonry. In the 1920s and 30s, the Pattinsons had their offices, workshop and yard on Station Road. Since then, the building has been converted and rebuilt, and that's what you're looking at here. However, the bell, which was mounted on top of the offices and used for calling the workers to and from work, has been preserved and can still be seen on top of this modern house. Right, Silver Street. This is a narrow one-way job and dead straight. It runs to High Street South, where we'll cross the beck and head for the Co-op. Ruskington's Co-op sits behind High Street North, all on its own really, with a huge car park in front of it. This is the main shop in the village, but that's all it can really tell us. However, heading into the Co-op takes you past another interesting building. That would be the Winchelsea Centre, which overlooks the car park's entrance. The Winchelsea Centre is a community hub these days, but this building was the original national school, constructed in 1868 and later replaced by what's on Chestnut Street. Its construction was funded by subscriptions, a government grant, and a donation from the Dowager Countess of Winchelsea. Her name lives on through this building today. This is used regularly. On the first and third Wednesday of the month, the All Saints Ladies Club meet here for various talks and demos. So too do the Lincolnshire Wildlife Trust on every third Monday. This is also the venue for the local Scrabble Club and Bridge Club too. Okay, so we've got a map here, guys, and this will show you where we've been and where we've still got to go. So we are here on this corner where High Street North and High Street South meet Church Street, right in the centre of Ruskington. Now I reckon this roundabout here is actually the middle of civilization, to be honest with you. We're heading down towards that in a moment. Last night, we covered all this. This area here is what we walked around. It's a big residential area. And so far today, we've walked from over here to here via this area here. So we've kind of got the middle bit left in a way. So let's head down Church Street towards that roundabout. Church Street next, which will take us towards the roundabout where the B1188 turns southwards towards Sleaford. First up down here is the Shoulder of Mutton. This is a popular and thriving pub which attracts customers of all ages. It's also one of the oldest buildings in the village and was once a butcher's shop, hence the name. If you look closely, that fact can be corroborated by glancing at the wooden ceiling in the bar. There, you may spot a few old meat hooks, still around from its butchery days. Changes have been made in recent years to this one, but they haven't spoiled its essential character. Standing guard outside is Night and Day, a sculpture from Lincoln's 2017 Knight's Trail. The pub is heavily connected to World War II. It was a popular watering hole for members of the 1st Airborne Reconnaissance Squadron while they were billeted in the village in 1944. The squadron would go on to be involved in Operation Market Garden in Arnhem in the Netherlands. Out of about 250 men, only 30 returned. When they did, legend has it they went straight to the Shoulder of Mutton, which had already closed for the night, but was reopened just for them. That's called respect. Inside today, you'll find a photo montage presented to the pub by the Old Comrades Association of the Parachute Squadron Royal Armoured Corps, which was combined with that of the 1st AV Recce. Okay, so here we are then at the central roundabout, and this is what I would define as the centre of the village. I know some people might disagree with that, but that's just my personal opinion. Now, there are 4 things which surround this roundabout, one on each corner basically. You've got the library, which is the building you can sort of see in shot there. We'll talk about that in a moment. On the other side of the road, there's a petrol station, and there's a Garden of Remembrance, dead opposite that. And then this big building here, this big house, that's the 4th of the 4. Let's talk about them all in turn. Here we have Ruskington Library. Now this should not be confused with the old reading room and library which you can find on High Street North. That was built in 1877 and looks nothing like this. A much more modern affair, this has occupied the corner of Sleaford Road and Church Street for quite some time. Initially run by Lincolnshire County Council, the library was later taken over by the community in March 2016. The library is one of 4 landmarks on every corner surrounding the roundabout. The second is a petrol station, a vital commodity for those that drive around a lot, like me. Over on the other side, there's a war memorial which stands in a Garden of Remembrance. Now, Ruskington has multiple war memorials. In addition to this, there's a cross memorial in the cemetery which honours those who died in World War I. It dates from 1920. Additionally, All Saints Church has a brass plaque memorialising 30 men from the same war, and that was unveiled in 1921. This Garden of Remembrance opened in 1950, commemorating the sacrifices of those same 30 men, as well as the 12 who died in World War II. The Methodist Church also has memorials for both World Wars, listing the names of the Ruskington men who died in each conflict. Now, completing the set of 4, the tall windows of the elms look over us here. This gives us another connection to the Pattinson family. The 1901 census shows the family of William and Anne Pattinson lived in a property called Eagle House on Sleaford Road. William's older brother, Samuel Pattinson, lived with his wife Jane in an attached property next door. That property was this, the Elms. Okay, not far away from the roundabout we come to a school. Now, we've seen a couple of those already. This one's perhaps the most unusual of the bunch that Ruskington has. It's a secondary school, but at the same time it's not a secondary school anymore, if that makes sense. If it doesn't, it's about to. Now we're heading down the B1188 again, and at this point it's a dead straight road that runs south to Sleaford via Lessingham Moor. If you look to your right as you venture along it, you'll spot the entrance to a school. That would be the Ruskington campus of St George's Academy. Ruskington no longer has its own secondary school, even though this is technically exactly that. To understand this place, we have to go back to 1957. In that year, Ruskington County Secondary Modern School was officially opened. It was renamed by 1999 to Coatlands Community School, which I imagine plenty of local viewers will remember. However, the school was underperforming in the 1990s and closure was being considered in 1994. In 1997, the school's GCSE performances were ranked second lowest in the country. If this story sounds familiar to you, it's because it's almost a carbon copy of what happened to Lafford School in Billinghay. However, thanks to head teacher David Veal, things improved here. Under his guidance between 1994 and 2007, the school would lift itself out of its troubles and was soon recognised as one of the most improved schools in the country. His retirement, though, was considered to be the reason why Coatlands School is no longer here. In April 2007, Coatlands joined a federation of Sleaford schools. The plan was to merge Sleaford's St George's College, Billinghays Lafford High School and Billingborough's Aveland High School, and Coatlands was invited to join with them. All four now comprise a single academy in Sleaford named St George's, which officially opened in 2010. Coatlands School in Ruskington closed its doors for the last time in 2009. However, St George's Academy still retains a presence here. Although the buildings were demolished in 2012, it was part of a scheme to begin work on a new satellite campus. These new campus buildings were officially opened in 2015. Although the Ruskington site has roughly 350 pupils, it only accounts for a small proportion of St George's total students. From schools, we now move on to cemeteries. There have been a few around Ruskington in its time. This is the Ruskington Communal Cemetery, the main one for the village today. Before 1883, the deceased of the village were buried in the churchyard at All Saints. As you can imagine, with the growth of the place, space was soon to be an issue. In 1882, it was decided to purchase a plot of land on Sleaford Road for a new cemetery at a cost of £400. It's still in use to this day. The last person to be buried in the churchyard was Hepzibah Ogden on the 27th of April 1883. The first to be buried in here was 4-year-old Lizzie Arabella Robinson on the 15th of May. Therefore, the opening of the cemetery, although not known exactly, can be dated to somewhere between those two burials. The most likely date would be the 1st of May 1883. Now, you would perhaps be forgiven for thinking that this road, the Sleaford Road, is really just that, just a road with some houses on it. Well, it is for the most part, but next to the cemetery, there's Ruskington's biggest employer. A lot of people know this as the Tulip Meat Factory. These days, it's run by pilgrims. So as we've seen, there are plenty of businesses here, from the small and independent local ones to the nationally known household names. Ruskington's biggest major employer, providing a raft of vital job opportunities, is a factory which makes pork products. This can also be found on the road to Sleaford. Run today by pilgrims, who we met yesterday, this used to be the Tulip Meat Factory. Tulip Limited was the largest pork producer in Europe and the biggest exporter of pork in the world. Tulip International was established in 1990 through a merger of Normeat, Damepak, Jacker and Tulip, and in 1998 became wholly owned by Danish Crown. The business became established in the UK in 2002, but its links with Ruskington didn't come along until December 2007. That's when it acquired George Adams & Son Limited, which consolidated its position as a key supplier to UK supermarkets. The Adams name was well known locally. Since 1910, Adams had produced quality meats ever since George Adams himself opened his first butcher's shop in Lincolnshire. Tulip would go on to have 17 sites throughout the UK, employing around 8,000 people. The Ruskington plant is the size it is today thanks to a massive £8 million expansion a few years ago. It saw the factory grow by 25% with the creation of up to 45 additional jobs. The work also included a new production line and upgrades to its refrigeration, power and waste facilities. The result was that this became the largest factory in the UK that supplies products such as cocktail sausages and Scotch eggs to the retail sector. So, next time you're in your local supermarket and you fancy snacking on either of them, you could well be eating something that began its journey here in Ruskington. Via Winchelsea Road and a few other residential streets opposite the factory, our next job is to head back north towards Rectory Road. Again, it's not all that exciting for a bit, so here's a bit more about another famous person who once lived in the village. Born in Ruskington in 1812, Joseph Tomlinson was an engineer and an architect who built bridges and lighthouses across Canada and the United States. In 1868, he co-designed and oversaw the construction of the Hannibal Bridge, the first permanent crossing of the Missouri River. He was the first person to hold the position of General Superintendent of Lighthouses for the new Dominion of Canada. For 8 years, he worked building railroad bridges for the Canadian government and designed one of the most impressive bridges on the Canadian Pacific Railway, crossing the Fraser River. He also designed a railroad bridge over the Ashtabula River in Ohio, but was fired from that project after he refused to make supervisor-ordered changes, which he considered unsafe. In the last years of his life, Tomlinson suffered from declining health, which included cerebrovascular disease. He retained his mental faculties, however. He eventually died of a stroke on the 10th of May 1905 whilst gardening at his home. Today, one of Ruskington's most famous sons is buried in Woodland Cemetery in Cleveland, Ohio. Okay, using that housing estate, we've come around St George's Academy, and they share their site with another school. And here you can see said school. It's called Winchelsea Primary School, and this is the final school on this walk. Now we're outside the entrance to the second primary school. This is Winchelsea School, which takes its name from the Earls that once occupied Haberhome Priory at Yerby. The history of this one is connected with the other school board, a different one to the one intertwined with the history of Chestnut Street School. In 1878, the board established Ruskington School, and they erected a building 2 years later. In 1903, the board was abolished and the site became Ruskington Infants Council School. In 1947, it was renamed Ruskington County School, and that's the way it stayed until 1974. That's when the Winchelsea School would replace it. It moved here to its current purpose-built site in 1992, standing right next to the satellite campus of St George's Academy. When it comes to leisure activities here, there are more than 40 groups based within the village, as well as several sports clubs. So far, we've not met any of those, but we're about to. On Rectory Road, we have Ruskington Bowls Club, a long-standing part of the village's community. In 1992, they welcomed a brand new pavilion to their premises, built at a cost of £1,000. The 3-ton temporary cabin was brought by lorry from Bottisford after the club's members raised the money needed to buy the building in just 3 weeks. Top job, folks. Okay, if you keep following Rectory Road in the same way that we have been, you get back to the central roundabout. We're not quite going that far though. Our next landmark is a pub called the Black Bull, and it's got an interesting history, but you need to look up when you stand outside this building because you might see a cheeky monkey looking down at you. On the other side of Rectory Road is the Black Bull, a historic pub with roots tracing it back to the 19th century. The Black Bull has been serving drinks since 1842. It's known for its traditional charm and cosy atmosphere, and it's a local favourite. In recent years, the pub has undergone a major renovation. This included a brand new kitchen, bar stools and a roof, which were all installed whilst preserving its character and history. The renovations cost around £100,000 and were funded partly by Bateman's Brewery. It was all overseen by its current owner, Luke Mitchell. The pub is notable for what you can see on the wall outside. Look up and you'll see a cheeky monkey staring back at you from above the main entrance. There were 2 of them at one time. Dating from 1871, this is the only one left now after the second one was knocked off and smashed when the pub was being repainted. It's a great little feature. Now, as we already know, there's been a Methodist church in Ruskington since the mid-1800s, although the one you'll find here today is a lot different to what was here back then. The first Methodist building on this site was plain and simple. It later gained some extensions to both the schoolroom and the vestries, and those were added in 1867 and 1909 respectively. The building at that time was heated by a coke boiler. Because of the chapel's proximity to the beck, the Stoke Hole and cellars would often flood, which caused considerable difficulty and damage. By the 1940s, the building was showing signs of extreme deterioration, and it was decided that a new premises should be erected. It would take a while for that to happen, likely due to the onset of World War II. Finally, in 1957, enough money had been raised to start work on a new church, and this building opened a year later. Okay, we found our way to All Saints Parish Church, which is right behind me, just there. Now this is a very small church considering the size of the village it's serving, and it used to have a spire at one point. It doesn't now. Dedicated to All Saints, this is right in the centre of civilization, and let's be fair, that's exactly where it should be. You'll find this at the western end of the High Street. This partly Norman church was built in 1086 to replace an earlier Anglo-Saxon wooden structure. A place of worship for more than 900 years, parts are believed to date from its original construction, but the chancel is a later addition, being added in either the 13th or the 14th century. There's a fragment of an Anglo-Saxon carved stone in the nave here. It's probably from the 10th or 11th century. Stained glass, some of which is still in situ, dates to the 14th century. Part of the tower is Norman, but the rest of it dates from 1620. It was rebuilt after it was damaged in 1618 following the collapse of its spire. The whole church was restored and the chancel was rebuilt in 1885. Today, the nave and the chancel are exactly the same as they were at the end of the 19th century. The tower, though, has been altered to provide a new vestry, kitchen and toilet. In keeping with modern energy practices, there are now solar cells at this church. They've been installed on the roof of the south aisle to generate electricity for the building. It's all very green. From one church we head off now to another. Via Westgate we're about to come to the South Links Church, a much more modern building but no less important. The South Links Church is a Pentecostal affair, formerly known as the Emmanuel Christian Centre. There are only 2 of these in Lincolnshire, the other being in Lincoln itself. Information was quite sparse about this one, but never mind. This video is already pretty lengthy, and we still have more to cover. Okay, so the South Links Church is in the middle of a massive residential area. Yes, another residential area. We're going to walk our way through this towards Parkfield Road and the sports complex next. Now we've reached the main sports complex, the vast open space that is Parkfield Road Recreation Ground. As sports go, Ruskington is no stranger to most. As well as the bowls club we met earlier, the village has a football team called Ruskington AFC. They're members of the Lincoln and District Sunday League. The village also has a junior football team called the Ruskington Lions. Given the popularity of women's football these days, it's great that they also have an up-and-coming girls team. In addition to the several marked football pitches here, Parkfield Recreation Ground has a multi-use games area and a children's playground. It's got everything a sports complex needs. In one corner of the playing fields is the village hall. This is a modern building, constructed in 1993. Today, the village hall acts as the central hub for a lot of Ruskington's social activities, groups and clubs. These include the Short Map Bowls team, who play here every Monday and Thursday all year round. Also on a Thursday, you can have a game of bingo here too. For those of you who are into railways, the Sleaford Model Railway Club meet at the village hall every Wednesday night from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. It also hosts a dance school on Saturdays, although Ruskington has two of those. There's a second one located on Brookside Close near the doctor's surgery. Yeah, I was hoping for a bit more of the football pitches and sports complex than that, but as you can probably tell, they're in use, the football pitches, by the Ruskington Lions, which is fair enough because that's what they're supposed to be there for them to be used, not just for me to film. Now, speaking of things which are in use or not in use, check this building out. That's Ruskington's police station, or it used to be. Ruskington Police Station has been in the news just lately. In 2024, Lincolnshire Police announced plans to close 17 buildings across the county, including this one. They reckoned in doing so they stand to save £225,000 a year. The move saw Ruskington, Woodall Spa, Billingborough and Curtin all lose these buildings that are often referred to as hubs. Hubs are unstaffed most of the time anyway, but the decision to close them did attract quite a lot of backlash from the public. My personal opinion is that they should all stay open, regardless of the savings. After all, you can't put a price on feeling safe in your local community now, can you? We've one short, final stretch of the High Street to conquer, and it takes in the Red Lion pub. This was originally a house, and the pub used to be where its current car park is. This fact is backed up by an OS map dating from 1887, which shows an H-plan public house on the site of the current car park. I couldn't nail down a lot more about this one though, so we'll move on to our final landmark. Okay, the last mile of the marathon around Ruskington, the biggest village in Lincolnshire. My legs are feeling it right now. I've still got one more village to cover after this. This is the last landmark, Ruskington Garden Centre. You find the garden centre up a dead-end street called Newton Lane, which runs northwest from the end of the High Street. Owned and run by the Elkington family for over 30 years, this charming and award-winning centre is housed in some original historic farm buildings. The family still farm in this area. It has a well-stocked plantaria and a wide variety of high-quality trees and shrubs. It can also boast a welcoming gift and clothing department, all housed in a lovely glass atrium. The centre has something for every visitor, no matter what the season or the weather. And you know what? I think the same can be said for the entire village of Ruskington as a whole. Put Ruskington in the books. That's cleared the biggest village in Lincolnshire, and what a journey it was. It was definitely worth the 2-day effort. We have one left to cover this week. Join me tomorrow for another folklore legend, this time connected with a church and how during its construction it kept getting destroyed. Now, just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.